Alrighty, what's going on, Macro Perspective peeps? Seamus and Marcos back with another episode. We have a great guest today. I think we're gonna keep it very lighthearted, conversational, just kind of go and explore some things, especially in the realm of mindset, identity, behavior patterns, and shifting. But we got Joe Hoye on the podcast today, who is an esteemed leader in the space of coaching women. Previously, his background's been in surgery, learning women really well, but then being able to give them the insights they needed in the health, nutrition, and fitness coaching world. But Joe, why don't you break down a little bit of your history on how you got to where you're at, right? Very extensive history there. And then, let's talk about what's exciting you nowadays kind of in this space for you.
For sure, man. So by the time I'm done with the story of how I got here, you're going to have to remind me of question 2. I guarantee you that. But it all kind of starts when I was 13 years old. And growing up, I had 2 stepbrothers. Other than that, I was an only child. My mom was my strongest, most consistent role model in my life. And with those things being true, I spent most of my time with her. And sometimes my brothers were in the house. Sometimes they were over at their mom's house. And at that same time, around 13 years old, number one, she saw I was starting to go down a bad path, hang with the wrong kids, do some pretty dumb shit that was not going to help my life moving forward. But at the same time, like that's as soon as I hit puberty, I shot up, but I stayed super thin. And I became like super uncoordinated, didn't know how to handle that body, wasn't super good in school. I didn't have a ton going for me. And so at the same time of me like doing dumb things, other kids kind of saw an opportunity to pick on somebody. And so I was the kid that started to get bullied and my mental health started to get affected. I got into some pretty body dysmorphic behaviors and my mom noticed all that. And she's like, well, I've been going to the gym for a while. I'm going to get my son on board or at least try. And she offered me to go to the gym at 13, fell in love with it, helped my mental health tremendously, redirected the trajectory of my life, but I never really gained any size. And so from 13 to 18, still going to the gym like a maniac, didn't put on any size. I was like 5'11", 140 pounds, super thin. Graduate high school, go to college and start pursuing a career in the medical field. Like you said, I was wanting to work in surgery. And so because of that, I had to take courses on anatomy, physiology, kinesiology, nutrition, and just really understand the human body, how it works and how it's affected by outside factors. So I became my first guinea pig, started applying all these things that I know to be true. But at the same time, like any 18-year-old away from home, like I start crushing beers anytime I'm not in class. And pizza follows that and sleepless nights follow that. And so now I have this tremendous calorie surplus and I'm still lifting, so I'm gaining a little bit of muscle. But all 3 of us know you can only gain so much muscle so fast. And so most of this was body fat. And in the span of a year, if we look at a BMI chart, I went from the definition of being underweight to the definition of being obese. I gained 80 pounds in a year, and then I had a new problem, right? Instead of being skinny and not confident, now I was fat and not confident. Yeah. So kicked the partying, dialed in everything I knew to be true, reached pretty much the physique that I'm in now, and found myself. Like I found my confidence, found my happiness, found my groove. And when I got home from college, everybody saw and they're like, holy shit, like Joe, how did you do this? Because number one, you changed your body tremendously, but you also changed how you present. Like you're a completely different person. You're confident, you're funny, you're looking us in the eye. I've never seen this version of you before. Can you help me do the same thing? And so enough people asked to where I'd always been kind of business oriented and something clicked. I was like, wow, I might have something here because I like doing this and I'd love to help other men avoid the problems and the struggles that I went through. Transparently, like I wanted to help people like us 3, really. Like younger men just feel more confident in their body and lose fat or gain some muscle. But when I went to start these 8-week fat loss challenges I kind of created, I got a ton of signups. I was just posting on Facebook and Instagram, talking the way I am right now. And I got a ton of signups, but I never looked at the names. And so day one, I open up my laptop, start that coaching call, and everybody looking back at me doesn't look like us. They all look like my mom. And so I panic. I'm like, holy shit, like what did I do to get this demographic inside my challenge? And number one, like that was confusing. Number two, I'd only ever created a result for me. So I didn't know if I could help them. But at the end of the first call, like the pressure was gone. We were all laughing and having fun. At the end of the first day of weeks, everybody got a result. And I was like, I don't really care if this is what I thought I wanted or didn't want. This is what I'm going to do because it's rewarding. And so moving forward, I really only served those women. And that was 7 years ago. At the time, I was not profitable, right? So like my first few challenges, I only had a handful of people. I wasn't charging a lot, and I was giving out a $500 cash prize. So I actually lost money on my first few challenges, but I loved it so much I kept doing it. But that's also not how you pay rent and buy groceries. So I had to keep my
Yeah.
job in surgery. At the same time of doing all this, my higher ups in surgery were like, hey, Joe, I understand you're the one male in this team of 7 other women, but I think it's a really good idea to take you and put you inside the OB and GYN based rooms. And so again, like fate, a higher power, whatever you call it, pushing me in this direction. Here I am learning about the female body, working with these surgeons and asking them questions during the procedure. Like, hey, doc, what could this lady have done proactively to avoid being in here? And so now
Yeah.
I'm taking that knowledge and applying it to my clients outside. Um, and I, years later, man, I think it was like 2 or 3 years later, somebody asked me the question, like, Joe, why do you do this? You're like 25. Why are you spending time with these ladies that are like 40, 50, 60? And I reflected on that for a while. And I think it's just from growing up with my mom,
Yeah.
right? Like I learned to communicate in a way that resonates with her and her friends just by naturally spending time. And that's kind of my story, man. So 7
I
years
love it.
later, here I am.
I love it. I love it. It's like serving a population. You're like, I don't even know. I don't even know. It's crazy. You've been coaching for some time, and you know, Marcus as well. And 95% of who I've coached the first few years of my life were all women, all women. And
Really?
you have a 18-year-old kid telling a woman what to do, but it's like, oh, hold up. Like, I have an education in this. I know I can't be a woman, but I have an education in this, and you're telling them things about their pelvic floor and like exercises to help them with like incontinence or like if they're going to do plyometrics in an exercise program, making sure like they do this pelvic floor movements, and like they're like, how is it? A 6-year-old woman's like, you can't be telling a woman to do that. I'm like, I know, but just give me a moment. And then they're like, oh, actually, it worked. I feel good. There's no back pain. I didn't use the restroom. It's like, oh, okay, you trust me now. It takes a while. It takes a while, especially in that phase. But it's different. It's definitely different. But when you have the education and the enthusiasm, I think it definitely helps. So it's pretty cool. It's a great background, man.
Yeah, man, I couldn't agree more with that too, because like, especially at your age, so you were 18, you probably had like the pitchforks and the torches come out so many times from these like upset women of like, hey, you're not me. You're never going to be me. You're never going to experience the things I am, which means you can't help me. It's like,
Yeah.
well, that's not exactly true. Like, what would you rather? Would you rather be right or would you rather get results? And man, I got on a massive podcast one day and I said that. And it was super polarizing, but it was the best thing I ever did because like I spoke my truth that had been inside of me for so long. And I'll tell you what, man, the ones that were going to hate me anyways hated me 100 times more. But the
Yeah.
ones that liked me, they're like, shit, I like this guy. And it was the best thing I ever could have done because it was just like full transparency out there. Look, I know I'm not you, but I can help you. And now it's your choice. Like the ball's in your court. Do you want
Yeah.
help or do you want to stay where you are?
I love it. I feel like Joe, how old are you?
31.
All
We're all the
right,
same here now.
we're all in all the
We're all the
same.
same here
Yeah,
now.
it's funny because that was like you said, it's like do you feel like part of what you're feeling right now is a little bit of a sunken cost fallacy? Do you know what that
Tell me
is?
more.
Like you've sank so much time into this thing, but you know you may be better served doing something else at the current moment, right?
At this point in my life,
Yeah.
man, that's an interesting question today. If you asked me 3 months ago, I would have said no. But I have so many like different opportunities in my life right now that it's actually something I've been thinking about a lot.
This is a great question.
Okay, yeah, like feed me into wherever you're going. But I will tell you this: I fucking love these ladies, right?
Yeah.
Like because I've spent so much time with so many of them, and I understand the struggles of like they've had so many promises by so many diets and trends and supplements and workouts and gimmicks, and they've been let down that like when they finally come to me, because I'm usually the guy that they come to when nothing else worked, when they finally come to me, I can give them that hope. And when I see that hope, it lights me up. So like bring me where you want with this conversation, but I'm hit or miss on it.
No, well, no, it's funny because I guess maybe if you would ask me if I would ask myself the same question 3 months ago, I'm like, yeah, like I've sunken so much time and effort into this thing, but I still don't necessarily know who I gravitate towards most and like in who I coach. And it's been the hardest part of like trying to even come up with like a sales pitch for like ads and stuff. And I was like, is it men? Is it women? Is it this? Is it that? Like So, you're mentioning women, and then again, like I would say, like probably a higher percentage, I'd have to go through the numbers, but a higher percentage of people I've worked with are in fact women, yet it's like kind of bizarre, right? Like, okay, like how's a 31-year-old dude gonna like kind of be able to articulate the information better than a woman does. So basically, like you just said, like you love these deeper conversations and getting the people results, and you made that polarizing comment, right? And it probably just like planted your footing even better towards those people that again were like, well, this guy's like not trying to like pitch me on some sort of prolon fast mimicking diet. Which, oh my God, just I'm getting ads at the wazoo from this shit. I'm just like, dude, like, okay, yeah, you're autophagy because you're eating 500 calories for a few days. Like, yeah, like how many different like peer-reviewed studies do we now have to send people for them to not believe to believe something else, right? But I actually really appreciate you like being able to say that in the beginning here because like to get people, you can either be honest, right? Or you could be what's the word, kind of coddling, right? And I think a lot of people that you're
Yeah.
probably coaching now
Yeah.
appreciate the honesty because you're like you're not doing the work or whatever that looks like, which again, I think more people need that in today's
Yeah.
society more than ever.
Look, man, I'm going to be honest with you. Like, so for the longest time before I made that comment, I think that comment was actually the tipping point of my business. Before I made that comment, and I've been super transparent about this with my clients, I wore a mask and I wore a facade because I was scared of what other people would think.
Hmm.
And so I would say the things I wanted to say, but they went through a filter first. So it was like, instead of like brain to mouth, it was like brain filter mouth. And it's because I was worried about offending the people that were in my mom's age bracket. But as soon as I made that comment and I realized, like, well, the people that were going to hate me still hate me, and the people that were going to like me even more. Fuck this. I'm just going to be me. Right.
Yeah.
And so, like, now I just show up as myself, and people
Good.
can tell that I care. And if they can't, like, that's okay. I'm not going to help the world anyways. I'm going to help as many people as I can, and somebody else is going to be out there for them. But man, you said another thing that resonated with me, and I'd love for you to like say it again because I'm going to butcher this.
Hmm.
But it basically boiled down to you trying to determine and define your ICA, right? Like, who do
Yeah,
I
yeah.
talk to?
Yeah, that,
And
yeah.
go ahead.
Oh no, I still don't know. To me, it's
Yeah,
funny
okay.
because it's like it needs to be broad, but then if it's too broad, I catch no fish. You know what I mean? So I'm like constantly my ads attract one person right now, and it's gay men. So I was like, maybe I'm just the gay men's coach, but like,
Dude, I have a friend that does that and he crushes. And I also don't think it was intentional, but he's like, you know what? It works and I help
yeah,
him. So fuck it.
I know, right? And
Yeah, I mean,
so
it's,
yeah,
go ahead.
it is just hilarious because I'm like, well, the message isn't hitting right, and it's not obviously reaching the type of person that I truly resonate with, which was kind of like a good lesson to learn. All right, cool. Oh yeah, it is more busy parents. I understand them. I am them, right? How do you get a result for those people? And how do you nurture a relationship with people? And again, not try to sell them on 30 days, but I say, hey, I need 90 days with you. And so like just changing even the sales pitch of like getting them to buy in. You're right. Like they were not going to be my people anyways if they wanted a quick fix. Like, but if they're willing to go through the steps and understand that nutrition is a lifestyle that and habitual things that need to get done and become prioritized slowly, then they're my right person because, like you just said, like diets, you don't like them, right? In the sense of like
Right.
probably the conventional naming and nomenclature of it, right? That's at least that's how I perceived it, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, you perceived it spot on. And I've actually I've almost shifted my ICA in terms of how I view it personally to not what somebody looks like on the outside, right? Not their gender, not their age,
Hmm.
not if they're a parent or their job or anything like that, but just like, I guess for lack of a better word, their identity and me seeing the possibilities outside of weight loss, right? Because I
Yeah.
think that weight loss is the tip of the iceberg of what people, like all three of us, like, we don't solve weight loss problems. I solve life problems by helping people lose weight, because when they
So-
lose weight, they are more confident,
Yeah.
they set boundaries, they speak up. When they set boundaries, their relationship improves. When they're more confident, they have a better relationship with themselves. When they speak up, they get a raise at work. And it's because you lost 30 pounds. So
yeah.
I just solved your life, not your weight.
Yeah. No, I love that. It's so funny you say that. So part of a group of men that I coach, they deal with out of control compulsive behaviors and addictions. And
Mm,
a lot of that has to do with the prefrontal cortex not developing appropriately over a long enough time horizon, where men that are 25, 35, even 45, some of them are just starting life, and I'm being compassionate, being very compassionate. And like the other day, I had a client, and I'm not saying this to put this person down, but it's like I think there's things that we struggle with. But for example, I was like, yes, so we're gonna do this thing. You're gonna send it in the mail, and they're like, I've never sent anything in the mail. I've never been to the post office, or I've never done
mm,
this. And I was like, oh, okay, I understand. Came up with just kind of like, hey, totally understand that works. But fully functioning adult. But then you realize, there are some milestones as adults that maybe certain people don't hit because they're doing different things. So I really have to work on compassion with
mhm.
people and realizing where they're at with their identity and going, oh, okay, this is the kind of man or person I'm working with, and meeting them where they're at is important, because now what's going to happen is through fitness and nutrition, and lifestyle, I'm working on with this person. What are the things I'm working with them? Well, there's some lifestyle skills that they needed to learn. Oh, Seamus, I've never really shopped for food before. My parents did that.
Mhm.
I'm going to teach you a new skill. It's called shopping. Welcome to Trader Joe's, or welcome to, welcome to Whole Foods. And then it's like, well, what is cooking? And to this day, I really think Marcus and I talk about this a lot, but like to this day, I think those are some fundamental skills that people are actually really lacking. And when you get some of these skills that are just bare life essentials, it really does help someone's confidence. It does help
Yes,
someone's identity.
man. And so just by how you guys talk, real quick, I got to give you some credit. You're like 10 times smarter than me. Right. So I'm going to be interested to ask you questions about a couple things in a second, but I don't think I'd necessarily relate to a lot of that. But as a kid, like growing up until probably the age of like 18, maybe like a year into college, man, my mom was somebody that babied me like crazy. And so like there was so much shit that like so many of my peers were doing, and like, could I figure it out? Yeah. But I didn't have to until
Yeah.
then. I was like, oh, shoot, like, uh-oh. But as soon as I did, you're right. The confidence came quick. It was like, oh, I can figure
Yeah.
this out. And if I can figure this out, I can figure out the next thing.
Yeah.
So it's got to be super rewarding for you. And then, of course, for your clients to
Yeah.
start to gain those abilities for themselves.
Percent. I think Marcos and I talk about this too. I think when it comes to confidence and identity and these things, some of it can be societal, some of it can be communal. Like the fact that we don't have a cooking class anymore in our high
Mm-hmm.
schools was like one of those issues, right? And when people come up to you as a coach, I think one of the things that they tell you is like, well, I don't meal prep, or I don't do any of that stuff. I've never learned how to cook. And it's like they might be feeling like they're coming in with a deficit. So there's a lot of like shame around it. And you're like, look, we're meeting you where you're at. We're going to teach you these things. And it's difficult. Some people can, not everybody's not that, but there definitely is this component. Like you learn some skills, and man, it opens up so many doors. Their confidence goes to the roof. These guys can cook. They're
Mm-hmm.
like, I got a date. I can cook for this date. I'm like, dude, that's awesome. Like, that's great. And it just opens so many things. And I think these basic skills, if like you said, growing up, if parents can help get that to us, if our community could get that to us. I know this whole issue with our country is usually around weight loss and stuff like that, but if it's solved through one phase, like through a bit of community and some skills, I think that'd be super beneficial.
Community is huge. I want to go back and I want education. Why are these guys prefrontal cortex is not developed?
So this is good stuff. I'm going to shout them out. So I work with a company called Elevated Recovery. Shout out to JK Amazy. He started a company called Porn Reboot. So the whole content there is basically men around compulsive behaviors and addictions with all that kind of stuff. And it's stemming from pornography and stuff like that. He has created the best program coming off pornography, but it is so much beyond that. It is so much beyond that, because it's really what you're talking about, Joe, is talking about rebooting from the standard of like fixing their identity, their behaviors, their relationships, their finances. I'm the expert on the nutrition and fitness and like supplementation in that group, like a fitness group. And it's like 7 different coaches, but like one's for trauma, one's for
Hmm.
mental health, one's for like image, one's for relationships. And it's like different, and it's like all encompassing program. And so I'm kind of like a one lever arm in that with like fitness nutrition. But like he talks about that a lot, where a lot of men, when they've been using different ways to get a dopamine hit through pornography or sexual addictions or different
Is
things
it like a coping thing or no?
through porn.
Well, anything,
Yeah,
I
so
guess,
that's
but
it's
yeah.
one of the it's like one of those things, or just like a different addiction. But like we talk deep. We have a podcast episode with him, but like one of the biggest things was like men have, they're not necessarily in control of their compulsive behaviors because that prefrontal cortex is a little smaller, or not as much gray matter. There's some studies on, and then like prolactin, and I don't know what it was, but Marcus was like prolactinemia, like tons of prolactin always happening. So there's like not much drive and focus from them and things like this. Yeah.
Interesting.
Or they just like to beat their meat. I'm just kidding. So that's insensitive of me to.
Marcos, no, I appreciate the lightheartedness.
And you're canceled.
And goodness gracious. All right. Well, good thing it's our show, so we can say what we want.
Yep, I love that.
But no, I mean the whole that whole space and like men in general, and you even mentioned you working primarily more so with women. As for everybody that got to this point, he didn't say ideal client avatar. That's what ICA stands for all of those wondering. Joe, you got to remember that some of these people that listen to this are not like attuned to the lingo, and I got called out about like my
Yeah.
jargon here recently. So I'm trying to be good about like telling people, meeting them where they're at. But the thing with it, I mean, me and so the position that I work for as part of my 9 to 5, we joke about it's like sometimes you just need to get the venom out. Sometimes it's clouding your mind and judgment. And then Jameis is literally working for a company that it's like not allowing for that to happen. I'm like, dude, there are some
So
days
let
where
me reframe the whole program is very specific. It's not like they're saying like don't do that stuff. It's just they're saying rewire your relationship with it.
because I think what was the numbers? These guys are putting up fucking like world record numbers. I feel like it's like two, three,
So
four
there was
times a
a there
day.
was a there was a
Oh boy.
study. So there was a study. It came out like a few weeks ago. It was an article that started like in the new year. Basically, I don't know what it is, but the amount of clicks that Pornhub gets in one click or something like
Yeah, I
that,
think I've
or
seen
like
this.
1 second, it was like 2 football fields worth of sperm, and I was like, "What the fuck?" Like, I was
How
like, "Yeah, that's
Okay, I haven't seen this.
I gotta find the article. It was like an actual study, like actual like metrics and stuff, and I was like, oh Jesus.
That's
Speaking
insane.
Speaking to that, speaking of Pornhub and how it's like a very interesting place where people are marketing themselves in, apparently, I forget where I saw this, that people are literally putting up educational content on Pornhub as if it's YouTube. So they're literally going in and doing
Like
like
ad space, like they're buying ads.
no, 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 no. They're literally having like instead of a porn video inside of the web browser, like that portion of it, they're literally just like doing like quantum mechanics, like in quantum physics and like in like entanglement theory, and like they're literally putting on there, and like literally people are like, it's like it was just I was reading through some of the comments that like the person that was talking about this like video was saying, and I was like, that's actually fucking genius. You already know that the amount of traffic that it gets, and someone may have just typed the wrong thing in, and then next thing you know, they're getting something informative versus well beating their meat in this case.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder. Like, God, okay, if I'm gonna start like to put on my business hat though, what's the average watch time of a video like that? What's the retention rate? But I've heard of people doing the same thing on OnlyFans, right? Very similar. It's
Yeah.
like people would start being a fitness coach through OnlyFans.
Oh, that's
I
wild.
mean, based on my freaking ad, I might as well just start one. I mean, they're like, I'm only here for the content, baby.
Dude, honestly,
I'm
Marcos, yeah, dude,
about
honestly,
to be driving a
just
Ferrari,
do a
Seamus,
steady
and say,
bit,
fuck the podcasting life.
or you start feeling it. No, yeah, no, that's funny though.
No, well, I mean,
Do you
in all
guys know? Do
seriousness,
you know Ryan Fisher?
of course, of him,
Yeah,
not him personally.
So, man, I haven't followed him for a while, but back when I was like getting into this, so probably like 6 or 7 years ago, he had a similar experience to you, Marcos, where it was like, man, I just got a bunch of gay guys that are kind of like chirping at me on Instagram and stuff. And so he's like, you know what? I'm gonna roll with these punches. And he started putting out like some really weird content in terms of like instead of filming a back squat like a normal dude would and then posting on Instagram, he would simply slide the camera like between his two legs facing up and then start to squat. And his content would crush. It was so funny.
Marcos, just go back 7 years when Ryan Fisher did that. Just replay it. Just don't have to recreate the wheel. Just run it back. Run it
Well,
back, dude.
and it also reminds me of this other instance where the again, this is like I don't even call it viral, but people are like putting their cameras on the weights and like taping it to it so it like gets these super cool angles. And he's like, I don't know if I'm doing it right. And he has like a leg press and it's just like looking at his balls, and like the squat is like looking at his balls, and like it's just it's almost as good as all the parody
That's so
videos I'm
funny,
seeing
dude.
That's amazing.
with Ashton Hall parody videos too, where they're just like, this is what my morning routine looks like, and I'm dying. I'm like, man, people are so quick to make these reaction videos these days. No, but the nonetheless, the craziness of like the modern day coach is definitely unique. And I think before we got on here, you kind of were like, what did you ask Seamus? And then you kind of responded is like, it's like year seven of this, like
Yeah,
in a
this is the
sense.
second question. Like, yeah, like what are the things that are exciting you nowadays, right? And you're like, hey, I've been in it for 7 years. I think when it comes down to the basics of nutrition and fitness coaching, there's basics, and you could not be so motivated by it anymore, excited by it anymore. But I think what excites you now, Joe, is what, like, identity, mindset shifting, communication things. Tell us about that. How or behavior change. How did that fall into, like, all right, I got to start thinking about this differently, more enthusiasm about this as opposed to just like, hey, let's follow your macros.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so when I think back to the most pivotal moments of my life, it didn't come from switching my Ben and Jerry's ice cream for a Halo top, right? It came from me realizing that there's something deeper inside of me, or that I simply have the ability to change who I am whenever I want, and that's okay. And so the first time that happened to me, I was 23 years old. It's actually kind of where this business started. I was working in the hospital at the time, like I said, and I had just split ways with the partner that I had, and I was kind of in like a really low spot. I was by myself. I had my house here in Vermont, like fairly large house for one person. Felt lonely. And so at work in the OR one day, I was talking with a colleague and I was like, I think I'm going to take a traveling position. She's like, no, you won't. And I've always had this thing where it's like, if somebody doubts me, I'm going to fucking do it. And so I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm doing it now. And so on my lunch, I'm like scrolling through these listings and I see Hawaii. And I was like, oh, that would be cool. And I thought the pay was good. It made sense to where like I could live out in Hawaii and not be broke because it's expensive out there. And so I went back in the OR and I was like, hey, I found a traveling gig and I think it's in Hawaii. Like, I want to go to Hawaii. She's like, you're not going to go to Hawaii. I was like, okay, now I fucking am.
No,
And
I got a
so
ticket already.
did. Like, I applied that day. They called me the next. They offered me the job 48 hours after that. And I was like, I'm going to Hawaii. But at the time, like, I had taken drinking up again, not to like a terrible extent, but to an extent that wasn't serving me. So like drinking, partying, not treating my body great. And I really didn't love it. But in the small town that I was in, so many people were doing it. Like there was
Yeah.
nobody that was just sober and like lived the lifestyle I live now. So I moved to Hawaii. And when I went out there, I had this aha moment halfway there on the plane. I was like, well, nobody knows me here. I can be whatever Joe Hoye I want to be.
Yeah.
And man, I got off that plane and I was different. I had never done CrossFit in my life, but I always wanted to. I didn't do it because the small-minded people that were local to me then were like, CrossFit's gay. You shouldn't do it. And so I was like, okay, well, their opinion matters more than mine. I'm going to listen to them. So I started CrossFit. When people asked me to hang out, I said, sure. When people asked me to drink, I said no. And I recreated everything about me. And so I basically re-identified. When I came home from that traveling gig, I stayed that way and I liked it. And so like that was one of the most pivotal moments in my life. And I reflected back on that recently when I had my business coach kind of ask myself and a group of people a series of questions. And it just brought that memory back. And I talked to my wife about it a little bit more. And so I dove deep on that for myself, like kind of discovering why, kind of discovering how I can do it again. And it's been working in massive ways for the past 6 months for me. And so now I've started to pour it into my clients and now watching them shift at a speed
Yeah.
I've never seen, not in weight loss, right? Because we can only lose weight so fast in a healthy way, but in
Yeah.
every other way in their life is so priceless.
Yeah. Like some of the behavior shifts just because they've started aligning with an identity. I tell that to people all the time. And I love that story for you, man, because it's like you can shift your environment and you could see, oh, let me try on this shirt for size. And then you bring
Yeah.
it back and you're like, whoa, people are like, wow. One thing I tell people a lot that I do, I think Marcos, I've said that on the podcast too, is like, just acting in accordance with the identity that I want to enable myself to be. And it's a hard thing because you kind of have to like, it's in here logically, like, but you force it into the behavior and it works. And I coach that to some of the men and women I coach. I'm like, you know, if you're, I've coached people to lose hundreds of pounds. I'm like, you know, if you're 300 pounds, and I'm working with this person that's like 325 pounds right now, I literally asked him on our call, I'm like, what's 325 pound, you know, I'm just going to call him John for anonymous sake. So like 325 pound John doing, and then what is 200 pound John doing? And they answer it. They know the answer. And I'm like, all right.
Dude.
And then I literally just ask them, like, how can you align with that John in your behaviors right now? And they shift right there already. Like, they can make that decision in a moment. I think sometimes what happens is with identity and behavior change, people make a mountain out of that behavior change. And they're like, well, Seamus wants me to meal prep. Seamus wants me to start tracking meals, start walking, and start eating protein. And it's like they stack all these things and it just becomes too much anxiety, as opposed to like, I just want to become that guy. And all these other things are just like, oh, it just comes with it, you know?
Man, I love what you just said, because all the answers are already inside of everybody. Like, I think our job as a coach for this aspect, right? Like, yes, we need to teach some things in nutrition and exercise. When it comes to identity and this shit, people know what they want. We just got to pull it out of them. And then we got to encourage them to start doing that right now. And man, that's been the biggest game changer for my clients too. It's amazing to see.
I love that.
It's always inside. Shoot. I feel like I just had a conversation about somebody today on a sales call. It was related to this exact thing. It's like, I know what to do, but I just need someone to report it to. It's a good thing we've done this before. You ready for round two? You know what I mean? Like, and I think like I think all of us kind of agree with this. Like, when we first got into this game, the thought of somebody working with you, leaving and then coming back was probably like not in our, I mean, shoot, wasn't even in our universe of like thought. Nowadays, it's like, dude, if I can just, again, like what you're talking about, Joe, if I can just pour into these people, give them my all, get more out of them versus just like the X's and O's, you know, they're going to remember so much more and how much they gained in terms of like how they felt, right? And not just from like the physical performance side of things, which I think we all definitely agree. We probably specialize in stuff like that because you mentioned CrossFit. I didn't know that about you, Joe. But yeah, you came back from Hawaii wearing your Nike Metcons, huh? You know, was that the era that you were in?
That's exactly it. Dude, you're not even joking. Like, I came back with a pair of Metcons and I was like, oh, I'm the shit now. I love CrossFit. Everybody's like, what did this guy get into?
The Metcon 1s or 2s, the 2017, 2018 era was like the 1 and 2s, right? 4s
No.
even.
No.
I went to Hawaii right before COVID, I think it was.
So I think we're at the
No, you're right. You're right. It was like 2018. I don't know what Metcons they were. They were beautiful.
They were beautiful. Dude, when those shoes came out,
it was the Matt Fraser exclusives. It was probably the
dude, I love the Nanos. They were cool. I think the even numbers were great. And then something happened at 9 or 10 and it just went weird. But the Metcons always stayed fresh.
Oh man, I'm on the other boat. So I started with Nanos. No, I'm sorry. I started with Metcons, and then a CrossFit friend was like, hey man, you look like you got wider feet. You should try Nanos. Fell in love with them. And I think they keep getting more attractive on every generation that comes out, personally.
Okay. And
you like the newer ones after CrossFit got rid of?
Yeah, I like
it. I think it was the 4s were probably one of my favorites because the wide toe and there's just like the rope and all that. But the Metcons were a little tighter, but you know what they were good for? Lateral stuff. It was really good for.
And rope climbs.
Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of figured they solved your shoes getting completely torn to shit with the little rope guard. Like they're like, look at this, we're gonna engineer something that's literally on the sole, and everybody was like, oh my god. And nowadays, look at us. And nowadays, Joe, you probably wear minimalist shoes like me and Seamus over here. There's nothing to it, no support.
What do I wear? No, I wear Nobles.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I rock.
Noble was the first company to be like, you can have a million colors with the exact same shoe. Buy the next colorway.
Yep. So like, man, if I could show you my actual daily driver shoe, you guys would laugh so hard. So like,
New
Noble
Balances.
is the oh no, it's so much worse. All right, I'll go get him in a second.
Go get him.
All right, hold on, I'll get him. Noble is the that's the gym shoe. Wait until you guys see these things. So like, again,
this guy's gonna pull out the loafers.
I'm Sperry's.
But you gotta see this. They're waterproof. They're functional. You don't need to tie them, and you can
Sketcher
take them on
slip-ons.
and off. Dude, they're like convertible. Check these out.
Hey, what are those?
So
What are
they're
those?
Merrills. They're Merrills. They're very Vermont.
Okay, well that's not in our wheelhouse on the West Coast over here, so we
We
would
got
never have
Sperry's
guessed
over
that.
here on the West Coast. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we don't do that. So you guys should see me though, because I have like my first form, oversized tee. I got my nose ring and like some Lululemon joggers, and then I'll complete the fit with what I just showed you.
The bear.
And
For
it's
everybody that's just not everybody that's listening to this, he literally pulled out like hiking shoes almost, right? Like would you describe them as that in a sense?
It's like a
I think
walker.
they're like grandfather shoes. There's not a
Yeah,
single lace to be found on this.
I mean, my son would love it because
dude.
he's lazy.
Honestly, I love like the function of those kind of shoes. I wish they just looked more fresh, you know? Like I would like
Yeah.
I'd wear because it's so funny because it's kind of like the same thing with girls and Uggs. Like they have these Uggs, but then they're like wearing like the tightest summer clothes. You're like, are you cold? Are you hot? Like what is going what are you
Mhm.
doing?
Yeah. I think I don't know if your listeners will resonate with this, but I have a feeling you guys will. I think my feet have reached like Alex Hormozy level. You know, they're all function, no form.
Man, it's so funny, dude. Put the high socks on.
Next thing you know, your
Put the
shoes are gonna be wearing a nose
acquisition.com
strip.
swoosh. Yeah.
Yeah, it might be. As long as they make money like him and they got muscles like him, I'm good.
I mean,
Jack as shit.
we you function, man. It's funny. Seamus and I ended up like kind of like fulfilling a review or an ad and like tagged Flux Footwear a couple of years back. And then they've gone like gangbusters since, and everybody's like, "Oh, you wearing these too?" I was like, "Dude, I've been wearing these before." They like really destroyed the internet marketing game because I was looking for like again like a daily driver that like looked the part but had the function. And granted, we don't have snow like you do up there in Vermont. I'm
Mhm.
sure there's plenty of it. So your shoes, I get it. Like I would probably be the same way. It's like the function of that, but just all black. Do they make a black pair of the Merrills?
You know what? I haven't considered it, but that's not a bad idea.
But don't take fashion advice from me. All I wear is black. So just
Same.
my wife would be like, no, like what do you have to say? Like I was like, look at my closet. Everything you see here is basically the same colored shirt, maybe a slightly different style. And if I don't like it, then I just donate it.
Yeah,
Literally,
dude.
this is my closet space. Legitimately, it's like 2 feet. My wife, the rest of the room. And then she's even started to commandeer some of my extra drawers that were my only storage space. Women, man,
Wow, you're
women.
you're a minimalist.
I mean, quasi intentionally. I think it's part of like growing up where
Mhm.
in my high school days they gave us like standard student attire, so it was just like dude, the thought of not having to like worry about what I'm it's a white shirt with like khaki pants, hell yeah, like I definitely like that because there was like everybody was kind of on a level playing field versus like the other high school I went to where it's like you got to be wearing True Religion jeans, you got to have like a Ed Hardy shirt, you know what I
Oh my
mean,
god.
you got to be wearing like I don't
The
even know what.
affliction shirts, bro.
Yeah,
Wow.
right, yeah, so that was the West Coast vibe for
Oh my god, bro. That
That's
was a whole
funny
nother.
because that was not the vibe in
where
Vermont.
What was the vibe
what
in
was the
Vermont?
vibe
Because
in
it was
Vermont?
very much like these shirts and like, oh man, I don't know what it was. What was it in Vermont?
It was 100% like American Eagle and Hollister.
Okay.
Interesting. I mean, those were part of it. Like, I mean, those were like normally it was like the dancer girls were the ones that were like super fine and didn't need to pay the extra money for like clout. But then you
Yeah,
also got the
look,
combination of those two.
I'll put this in perspective for you. So at the beginning of the show, you guys learned that I was the kid that got picked on in high school.
Yeah,
I was judging people that wore Ed Hardy.
same.
Like
It was out of my budget for sure.
Dude, I'll tell you this right now. Growing up, so like in LA, I grew up near Calabasas, and it just kids with like money and parents that had money, and they'd come in and they'd be wearing these fits at school that were like, yo, that like is a fit from like a catwalk. You know what I'm saying? Like a guy, girls, all this. I wrestled, and all I wore were sweats. So I'm a weird kid that's like, why the fuck is this kid wearing sweats the same color? I'm like, I gotta be sweating today because I got I gotta make weight by the end of the week. Like, you know what I'm saying? So like, fashion for me was never a thing, but I always appreciated it. So like when college happened, I started like exploring dapper looks, really like floral stuff, preppy kid. Nowadays, I'm just like, you know what? Zip me out on Lululemons and I'm good. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I love the ABC pants. I love the four-way stretch pants. Something basic like built shirts or whatever. I'm like, I'm cool. I'm happy. It's monochromatic. It's just the colors I like. But my gosh, yeah, growing up, Joe, like the Ed Hardy, the Afflictions, man, the whole fashion with kids was such a trip when you were a kid. But like, tell us about how you felt as a teen. I mean, and how that informed like, because you talked about there like an eating disorder. I kind of relate to that because I had disordered eating from wrestling. Was that like just like a super like? Did you have a really bad relationship with food, or what was going on there?
Yeah, it was interesting. So I never really had like the typical mainstream eating disorders that I think most people are thinking about,
Yeah,
right? I was extremely body dysmorphic and I still am, right? Because I don't think that that's something that ever goes away. I think it's something that we learn to handle and
yeah,
live with a little bit better, right? And so like I have the ability now to most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time shut off that voice in my head and that illusion looking back at me in the mirror and reflections, right? And I can realize where I came from of like, wow, you were super skinny and now you've gained about 65 pounds, 90% of that is muscle. Like, good job, dude. Um, but yeah, I mean, going into high school, I started getting picked on so much. Like, people would call me gay and all the slang words for gay so much that, and I kid you not, like, I had a girlfriend at the time. I would get called gay so much that I would go home and reflect to myself, like, am I actually gay? And in
they
like,
gaslit you that hard. I was like,
bro,
just like you're pressing it hard.
that hard that I was like, shoot, are they right? And it was just a crazy thing to think about. And so like, you're super gay, like you're too small, you're this, you're that, you're never going to be good at shit. And obviously, like, it sucked at the time. Right now, I don't think I would change it for anything because it put a fucking fuel in me like nothing else.
Yeah,
Because when I realized that I did have the ability to do things, it was game over. Like,
yeah,
it was just game over. Like, okay, well, I now know I have the ability to do whatever I want to do and learn whatever I want to learn, so I'm going to do that.
yeah.
Um, and now, like, it served me so well, but it was super unhealthy before. I think that my disordered eating was really just orthorexia, which honestly, if I'm guessing, I would assume most coaches and trainers have had to some extent, right?
Oh yeah,
Because I think the path of a coach is coming from somewhere that you don't like, getting to where you want to be. And most of the time, at least in my experience, a lot of this was trial and error. And I reached one of the best shapes in my life through this super disordered fear of bad food, orthorexic eating, and it worked, but I also realized, shit, this is not something I ever want to put on anybody else. And so that's
yeah.
kind of why I became a coach, because I was like, I want to help people get here, but I don't want them to get here the way that
This
I
way.
did.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's probably like my extent of disordered eating.
No, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of people fall into that line of orthorexic or just constant like neuroticism about just like food and constantly finding another diet or doing another thing just to be like,
Yep.
is this the way to hire up? I've done the same thing. And that body dysmorphic tendencies, like, they don't leave. I mean, like I said, I was a wrestler and like, dude, the first time I knew that I had these tendencies was in a health class. Imagine a white wall. A girl is facing the white wall with a light behind her, and they said, hey, draw a marker around your shadow, what you think your shadow looks like. And she drew a shadow twice her size because she thought she was that big. And I was like, yeah, that's me. Like, that was the first time I kind of was like, I get that. Cause like, I think about body fat in a way for me personally, especially with the fuel of like being in a weight class sport.
Yeah, for
Like,
sure.
it really messes with you. And like, you go to weird extremes for the sport, but then how it just translates into life. And so it's like, it falls in such a weird psychology of like orthorexic eating disorder or disordered eating and then like performance, and it's just like, so coming back from that definitely takes a lot of skills and a lot of things to realize, hey, I can get out of this. I don't think this is probably the right way. What would a healthy person do? Yeah, this is abnormal as opposed to what is normal, you know?
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, at this point in the US, what are we even going to consider normal in terms of eating, right? Because
Is
if,
that a serious question?
well, I mean, I've thought about this recently. If you think about it, like, people eating healthy and changing their ways from stopping at Burger King on the way home from work every night are ridiculed of like, you sure you want to do that? You can just have one beer with me or you can just have one brownie. It's like, no, I want to eat that way. Like, what's the fucking eating disorder now?
Mm.
I think the next generation has a lot more that they're considering as it pertains to that. And to blanket state the word healthy very nuanced,
Yeah, you
very,
can't do that.
you can't define it because even for me, like if I define healthy, there's parts in there that my wife doesn't think is healthy, but I'm like, if I want a fucking Coke Zero, I want a Coke Zero. And she's like, you're a
We
health
had a
coach.
big debate about this.
I know. She's like, you're
Do
the
you
Internet
guys
you're
know
broke.
NLP?
yes, yeah. Like
So I'm reading a book
neuro-linguistic
called
programming.
exactly.
Okay, okay.
I'm reading a book called Sleight of Mouth right now, and they were talking about values and criteria. And so healthy is a really good example, and what you and your wife experience is a perfect example too. So like healthy is the value, but the criteria that you base healthy on is completely different, aka like your definition of healthy, right?
Bingo.
And so
Yeah.
man, it's so tricky to have that conversation of words that can be misconstrued so easily.
Well, that's why I'm like, that's why I use the jargon, quote unquote. Like I'm a math guy, so my background, Joe, is in math, just to let you know, audience already knows, but like everything has a definite definition intentionally, right? And I mean, when I actually help kids out with math tutoring, I'm like, you're gonna hear me kind of NLP. Like I don't say that to them. Like you're gonna hear me emphasize these words, but like I'm doing
Yes.
it kind of from that guise of NLP. They're like, oh, he's like hard stressing like the thing so that they can extract the information on the test. And when they read it, they're like, they're almost doing it the same way that I did, so they can be, oh, I know the shape of parabola. Like what does that tell you? And they're like, U shape. All right, is it up or down? Like so, like there's things that you can do in that criteria in the definitions, and that's why it's so important. So healthy is very ambiguous, right? What would you define as healthy, Joe?
Oh boy, Jesus Christ. What would I define as healthy? Okay, well, we need to set definitions on that. Like in what? In a healthy relationship with something, healthy in your body? Like what?
Define health.
Oh God.
It's on you, Joe. You can define the terms however you like now.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, we're gonna be here for a long time, boys. Health is undefinable by me currently. That's so hard to do.
Is it cool if
All right.
I can step in for a moment?
Dude, please do. Yeah.
So something I've been thinking about because healthy is so. I think we still need to define it, but one thing I was reading was this concept called salutogenesis, which is the opposite of pathogenesis. So it's health promoting behaviors. It's finding a way to get health seeking behaviors, as opposed to pathogenesis is just getting out of disease or managing disease, or managing a state. So salutogenesis is like creating new health promoting behaviors, but I think we still need to define what health behaviors look like, but it's like
Okay.
seeking of it. And it's weird because even so, I went to a summit a month ago, and even the integrative healthcare space, we still don't know how to define health, let alone define optimization. Because they're all about like, well, it's not just about health in the healthcare system. It's, sick care and preventative care. But then what about like optimal wellness? Well, no one really knows. Like there's still, and they can agree on, right, Marcos, is N of one, what it means for the person when they're seeking that behavior. So
I
it's
have the
kind of,
definition.
there you go. Let's go, Joe.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's either living in or having a relationship with something that does not cause stress.
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
That's thoughtful. So I guess like that.
I'm going to Google this.
We're going to define stress, though, because hormesis is still important, Exercise is a stressor, because that's good, too. Dang, this is... Yo, we need to figure this out. Who's the
Okay.
definition?
So health is the state of being free from illness or injury.
Perfect. Love it.
Okay.
So
It's pretty
I
much
think
that, yeah.
well, this is where like CrossFit did a fantastic job of using. I don't think it was theirs, but whoever they reference, I always get to this like continuum in my head where there's the sickness, health, or wellness, and then the fitness continuum, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
Healthy is like absent of disease. You can like go do things like there's actually numbers associated with it. So there's a little bit of objective part, but probably as well, like the mental health conditions and the things that you're talking about here, like the stress levels, like you're like, I'm healthy. So like I can go do these things. Like having a beer could be healthy, right? Because it is okay, but you don't need to have that orthorexic relationship where it's like, I cannot ever have it, right? I choose to not have it because it doesn't define me, but like, I mean, for me, like I usually make the rule of like, oh, if my wife wants to have a drink with me and she's drinking, then I'll drink with her because, well, everybody knows why.
Tell
But
me why.
I don't need this. I don't need this. This is a family friendly podcast. I'm just kidding.
We've already gone deep rabbit holes in this one.
No, well, like again, like I think part of it is like she's a mom. She's like, I can't like let loose like that anymore. So when she does, I'm like, okay, cool. Like I'll enjoy it with you. But literally a couple weeks ago, we're watching the fight. She's like, give me a drink, and I bought the drinks, and she's like, I don't want the drink. You bought me like sweet stuff. I was like, well, what the fuck do you drink? I don't know. Like this, we never drink. She's like, yeah, there's no chance. I was like, oh, I thought if you had a beatbox, you'd just be. You'd be fine. Like it just, she's like, this is like lighter fluid mixed with like fruit punch. And I was like, yeah, I was just
Again,
hoping you'd get
definitions.
right? So to me, like that continuum does a good job. And I mean, I think we did this on an episode previously, Seamus, where fitness is like giving you increased protection from
Oh yeah.
mortality risk factors, right? And one would
Yeah.
argue that like fitness, again, going into the gym gives you increased protection from sarcopenia, osteopenia, your blood pressure could be better, all the things that it helps improve. It also has that side of that mental component that you're mentioning here too, Joe. Like there's pieces to that. Like I'm sure all of us would agree if we don't get like our normal amount of workouts per week, we feel dejected. We feel some type of way. Like, and it's weird. I'm like, I want to take an extra day off. And I was like, no, I don't. But like I've been thinking about that here recently. I'm like, what am I like? There's again like I'm thinking of the meme. Job's done. Like go home. Like I don't need to be here any more hours than I am. But I want to be here. And like if I don't do this, then like I'm not gonna have a good day. I'm not gonna like it's not gonna feel complete. I didn't challenge my body. I know my mind will be challenged. But I need to challenge that too. So that's
Yeah.
I hear you there.
that fitness component or that the and again people will push it too far beyond that, then it actually becomes like you're off the scale and healthy again in a sense, right? Because then it's like the body fat percentage needs to be nutty, and you're doing all these things to kind of optimize, and you're going to take a bunch of different medications to help lower potential risk factors, and we don't know how those things really work in the long term quite yet. We're theorizing that XYZ cholesterol blah blah blah, right? So the amazing thing though, like again, I asked my wife the question, was like, give me the definition of healthy whenever it pertains to food. Because my definition is going to be like, again, I'm going to eat things that are going to keep me at a healthy body fat percentage that tastes good. And occasionally, she's not wrong that I might be overdoing it on my Coke Zero consumption. But again, I was like, well, what's the alternative here? I'm going to go eat sugar and sweets and things that are going to fatten me up and make me potentially sicker. It's like it's a tough thing because she's like, well, you're just looking at the numbers and the calories. I was like, well, those things matter the most to me. So that's part of my definition of health.
It would be for mine too, right? I mean, so what would hers be if you had to put words in her mouth, which I'm sure she would be super happy about?
Yeah, she loves this when I do this.
Good thing she's not listening to every episode, Marcos.
She should. She would know so much more about me. She's
I
already
know.
getting sick of it now. Again, she's like, she always makes this comment. I liked you better when you were more granola, when you were a little bit more crunchy. And I was like,
Micronutrients and
yeah, everything is
organic and
very
yeah.
organic and natural. And I was like, I'm still that person. But I've also learned that I can care less about it because it's there again. Is this just a way to drive up the cost of particular things for consumer goods? What does organic even really mean, right? They could still be using some sort of pesticide, right? And I'm gonna be like, all right, the thing, one of my mentors' predecessor, um, he was like, dude, 30 doesn't clean 15. He's like, if there's anything you should definitely pay attention to, is definitely that. So I'm like, I liked the other thing there is like that dude looked like fucking he was carved from stone. So I was like, I'm probably gonna listen to him because he's combining this holistic element with again looking the part in physical fitness, right? So I do still like things that you're gonna wash and then eat, for example, probably should be organic, right? You don't want how I don't soak my produce typically and let it sit there and try to like cleanse it. I feel like we shouldn't have to. So those ones I'll pay a little bit more for, but you know, um, granted, like vegetable stuff too, but we don't eat a ton of it. If we do, we get it frozen. I just reheat it, right? Like, there's a bunch of things that, like, again, it actually ends up being cheaper than getting like a fresh produce. And these are all things that we define. So she's like, "Yeah, I liked you better when you were crunchy." Then she went down a rabbit hole and she goes, "I need you to stop cooking with like Teflon pans or ones that are coated, not no more nonstick.
Yeah, man,
Can you
I'm in that
take?"
house right now.
And I was like, "Do you know how hard it is to cook with fucking butter for someone that wants to like keep track of their fats being at a certain level?" It's like and then I come home a few days out of the beginning weeks, and she's using a nonstick pan because she doesn't know how to fry an egg without it.
Hi.
Man, that's hilarious, man. Joe, dude, honestly, this I love this conversation because it's us just riffing and just a few coaches connecting. But we're close to an hour, and I want to be respectful of your time. Yeah, anything going on in your world? Any big things you're dropping in the near time? I think just to be clear, I think this episode will be dropping more towards like June, but we can move it if you have anything specific. Like or I'm dropping a course, or I'm doing a challenge at this time, that we can kind of promote for you as well. That way it's kind of timely.
Yeah, nothing special. Our one-on-one coaching will probably be full at that time. And so if anybody resonated with the very small amount of talk that we had around nutrition and weight loss, you can certainly reach out and talk, but I think I'll probably be full. So if that's the case, I'm kind of planning ahead. I do have a quiz that everybody can take. It's called Fix Your Fat Loss Quiz. It's 60 seconds long. It's free, of course. And it's going to tell you, number one, where you're at. But I think more importantly than where you're at, what you need to do next in order to start losing weight in a simple way. It's helped a ton of people so far. That's where I'd love everybody to go start, because it's just going to help the masses.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, we'll put that in the show notes below. We got all this stuff. Marcos, you want to close this out, my man?
Yeah, I do have one more question for Joe, and I feel like, damn it, where did I put it? I'm trying to get better about like asking open-ended questions because I ask a lot of closed ones. So I usually write them down. Come on, search history. Because this is what you do to your clients too, right?
Say that again.
This is what you do with your clients too, right? Because you mentioned a lot of deeper thinking type of questioning.
Yeah, I generally try and pull out some stuff that I already know is inside of them.
Oh man, I can't find it's like that. Anyway, all right, cool. Well, okay, I'll reword this one a little bit. Uh, what does it mean to you when you finally get people to take control of their health, and how does it help in them not feeling stuck?
So I think for somebody to actually take control of their health, they realize that they have to stop relying on diets and prescription anything, right? They can't be prescribed a diet. They can't be prescribed a workout. They need to foundationally understand what the things are that create change in their body, and at the same time understand how to apply it inside of a lifestyle that they love. And that's when somebody actually has control. Because if those two things aren't true, the diets are controlling you. They're controlling whether you're going to lose weight, and as soon as they're done, you don't have control, because if you had control, you'd keep the weight off. So they gain it back. The only time people actually have control of this is when they understand what to do and how to do it in their life. And so that's what I try and teach our clients is, hey, these are the things that create change. Let's discover what you like inside your lifestyle and learn how to put those two together. Once I see that, like, I want you to stop paying me money because you don't need to anymore. Go do your thing.
Well spoken, man. You hiring? Can I work for you? Because I feel like I
Yeah.
got a line. No, I'm big joking, but it's like I feel like all three of us here have the exact same kind of approach, and it's before, if you would have told me that my livelihood would depend on people actually getting like mastery of this, I wouldn't have believed it. I'd be like, well, how am I supposed to make a living? But you make a living by doing a good job and getting people to, coaching to the result and getting them to that place so they can drive that kind of change autonomously. And then again, if they need that tune up later on down the road, we're always here. We're always here to like support them if they need that person to just kick them in the ass a little bit more. You know what I mean? And I definitely resonate with that far more in the 2025 version of my coaching as well, because, you know, it took a long time to believe that I can get people to actually get it done over and over and have it repeatable for themselves. And I think since switching to that exact kind of like model and knowing that, this isn't goodbye forever, it's just goodbye for now. When we get to the end of that journey, it's feels amazing, feels impactful. And then again, you get the next person. Maybe it's a kid, maybe it's just going into your community a bit more. And all those things are, why we started this damn thing,
Yeah.
I love it, man.
So
And a lot of times, because like lately I'll have a lot of coaches ask me like, Joe, how can I grow my business? How can I make more money? And I think that they're asking the wrong questions, right? Like going back to exactly what you just said, I think the question should be, how do I create better results? Because better results
sure,
for your client are the thing that's going to be what creates better results for you, right?
1,000%.
That's it. And so care about the client and you win too.
Yeah, well, in the current state of things, hey, for everybody looking for coaches in different pockets, again, what is your ICA again? You mentioned that. Like, who is the ideal person for you again? There really isn't one.
Somebody that wants a better life, right? Like
Yeah.
if I had to define it, it's probably that. I usually work with women that are 30 plus at this point. It was 40 and older, but what I saw is women
Mm,
that are 40 and older are solving a reactive problem. They're reacting to metabolic issues and massive muscle loss due to diets. And so I've shifted to still helping them, but also going younger a
younger.
bit and
Yeah, yeah.
hopefully helping the younger generation avoid that muscle wasting and avoid those problems in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. At the same time, secretly, It's not going to be a secret anymore, but I start giving them those mindset shifts and those identity changes, and it kind of changed their life along the way.
Oh yeah. All right. Well, hey, if you're looking for, you guys got to the end of this episode. If you're looking for somebody that wants more of a concierge kind of feel and touch, and again, no questions too small for me and my team, that's exactly what we're looking to provide for people, because why shouldn't you be the most important person in the room? And, I'm here to help drive that with my team of people, as I continue to grow and move into 2025 further. Joe, you mentioned a business coach. I've been getting a lot of value out of having one myself. And when we as coaches say that like we get coached on shit, we're not lying. It's just that we're maybe not getting coached on nutrition anymore. We're moving into other areas that help us grow as individuals. And I do actually want to get back to having an actual coach to see if maybe I am not putting enough tempo into my training with my bodybuilding. I don't fucking know, but someone to just tell me what to do, like, having a coach there for those phases and those part of the journey. I guarantee you after the conversation today, all three of us would be great fits for if you feel like that's the need that we can provide. So, Joe, again, massive pleasure to meet you, man. Thank you for coming on and just being one of the guys and fitting right in. We'd love to have you back for a second one in the future. We'll have it more of a less open discussion. Maybe we can focus on something in particular. But macro perspective peeps, until next time, we're out.
Joe, good stuff. Just stay for a few moments. We're gonna
Mm-hmm.
Riverside's gonna do its thing.